Hey guys, Morktorkus here. So in this video, we're going to be diving into a big dump of cards that we got a while back of all different regions. Not all the regions are going to be receiving champions this expansion. We do have 2 more expansions that are coming for this set, and some of the regions are going to be having to wait a little bit before they get champions. But we do get a pair of cards for each of the unchampioned regions. So that's going to be cool to see. So we're going to jump into this and see what Empires of the Ascended is bringing to a lot of these other regions. So Targon is getting an 8-mana burst speed spell, grant an ally in hand, +8/+8. So obviously this is quite a slow card. 8-mana hand buff is pretty slow. But the first idea that came to my mind when I saw this was Stellacorn. I have not actually done anything with Stellacorn since it's been released, but it is a lifesteal spell shield unit. And if you were to drop this onto a Stellacorn and make it a 9/10 with Spell Shield and Lifesteal, I honestly think that could swing the entire game in your direction, and you could win the game after that. I don't know what else would be in that deck, but that combo alone definitely sparked my imagination, and if you have the time to pull that off, I think that would be amazing. It is a 2-mana card, right? So you would have to have 10 mana. 10 mana would be turn 7. So turn 7, you make the big swing back into the game. I don't know. I don't know how viable that's going to be, but we'll end up seeing with that. Outside of that, there might be some other cool, fancy meme combos that you can do. But I think because the Stellacorn does have Spell Shield and Lifesteal, I think that could actually be something that you could pull off, as long as you can make it to the point where you can pull it off. It's just the 2 cards might be a little dead in your hand up until that point. But yeah, definitely cool. Definitely a fun idea. And we'll see if that Stellacorn idea might actually end up being a thing. Then we have Star-Tipped Peak, 2-mana landmark, countdown 2, create 2 random celestial cards that cost 3 or less in hand. So I look at this and I think of Star Chart. Star Chart is 2-mana burst, and you instantly get to pick one of the 3 or less cost celestial cards. We, at this point, have so many ways to get 3 or less cost celestial cards, and we know that they're very good. We do know that they're very good. There's not really any of them that you'd hate to have. Like, you get the discount, which is maybe not going to be super useful all the time, but it's certainly nice. You get the Serpent, which is often quite good in a lot of situations. The Spell Shield. You get the Overwhelm guy. They're all pretty decent, but you don't have the power of just getting exactly what you need in the situation. Not to mention, Countdown 2 is kind of long for you to be waiting for the value off of it, and not even knowing that what you get off of it is going to be what you need. It's really weird that it would be 2 mana when we already have Star Chart being a thing. And, people sometimes run 1 copy of Star Chart in non-Zoe decks. You wouldn't run it in a Zoe deck because Zoe would just discount it instead of giving you a Star Chart. But yeah, I don't think it's very good. You could potentially run it in some decks, maybe just because you want that extra value really badly, or maybe you want more celestial cards maybe in a Victor deck or something, but I still can't really see it. I just think there's better options. There's like so many ways to generate cheap Celestial cards, and this is probably the weakest one. So yeah, so I don't think it makes a ton of sense. Maybe if your deck needs to have landmarks, if you're playing a Talia Targon deck, I don't really know what would be going on with that, but yeah, it definitely doesn't impress me. Then we have the Bilgewater cards. 4 mana, burst speed spell, Lost Riches, draw a treasure. If there aren't any to draw, create 2 treasures in your deck instead. So, first off, addressing the draw treasure effect. So you have 2 ways of putting treasure in your deck. You have this card, and you have the 7 mana deep card. Thing is about treasures, you can pull them with toss. So I don't really know if you'd want to be running that 7 mana card in anything else, just because you're going to do this when you would rather just do a deep deck and then toss and then get your treasures, right? And then you're playing this to draw the treasure, but you could just be tossing, and that's much cheaper. You just play Jettison, and then you get it for 1 mana, which is so much better. And then for the creating treasures in deck, then, you know, sure, if you're playing a deep deck, you put 2 more treasures in your deck, and then you Jettison, you get a bunch of treasures. But even then, like, it's like they're good. They're definitely good, but you're putting a lot of effort into getting them going. And if you're not playing deep, then this is the only way you're going to get those treasures without drawing them directly. So at that point, you're effectively playing 8 mana to draw 1 treasure, and then you still have to have the 5 mana to play it, because they're all 5 mana. Seems really, really bad. I think this card is not going to be happening at all. I think if you really want treasures, you'll just play the 7 mana card and just toss your deck and try and find the treasures that way. Way more efficient. And then you can play Nautilus and whatnot, and you'll probably be happier. Then we have Loaded Dice, 4 mana slow speed spell. For the rest of the round, when you damage the enemy Nexus, nab 1. It's a pretty memey card. I could see this working as, like, a cool idea in a Powder Pandemonium deck. Powder Pandemonium's already kind of a meme deck, but it is already nabbing a lot. You could maybe go to the point where you're kind of milling your opponent with it. And you could turn it into a mill archetype instead of running... I mean, I guess you'd still have to run all the smaller stuff to make it work, but... yeah, you like turn it into a nab archetype. You'd end up having to spend 8 mana on 2 slow speed spells that turn, but for every one that hit face, you'd get 2 nabs, and for every one that didn't hit face and hit a unit, then you're still getting the 1 damage off of the Death Rattle, or Last Breath, Hearthstone terms. You're still getting 1 nab off of those. So if you were to full board it, let's say they had 4 blockers, then that's 4 plus 4 is 8 nabs. That's a lot of value that you're getting back. So it's pretty cool. It's interesting. I don't think you can pull this off as a legitimate strategy outside of that. So yeah, I think the Bilgewater cards are just going to be pretty memey this time. But it's still a fun card for sure. We might see a crazy Powder Pandemonium Loaded Dice deck come out of this expansion. Then we have the Ionia cards. Shadow Apprentice, 1 mana, 1/1 elusive. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 if an ally has Ephemeral. So my first thought was this makes a ton of sense in a Encroaching Shadows combo deck. Encroaching Shadows did give you the ability to make a elusive ephemeral like combo if you combined Shadow Isles and Ionia to do it. It was pretty extensive amount of cards you needed to make it work because just everything had to line up. But this is only 1 mana, and in that case, it's a 4/4 or 4/4 minimum if you only play 1 Encroaching Shadows. And that gives you a lot of potential. Only 1 mana for 4/4 can get you a lot of the damage you need for that combo pretty quickly. If you have a few of these all at once, you can push a lot all at the same time with this, because you can drop like 3 of these and then put a mask, Keeper of the Masks, and then they're all 5 attack, and that's already 15 damage. So that could definitely be a thing. It's clear that they're also trying to just do like some sort of Ionia ephemeral strat in general. So even if you don't do an Encroaching Shadows deck, if you do end up being able to do like a bunch of ephemeral stuff, that'd be pretty sweet. Certainly, like we're about to talk about Field Musicians, but I feel like they're trying to push the ephemeral archetype with Azir and his Sand Soldiers, and I think this would have some synergy with that for sure. Like a 1 mana 2/2 elusive is pretty strong. If you look at like the flight, it's kind of interesting in some Nightfall decks right now. Even if again Nightfall isn't super relevant, as I talked about in my last video. But yeah, I think if that deck did end up being a thing, this would definitely make it in there. Even as a 1 mana 1/1 elusive, you're not like, you don't hate that too much if you play that on 1. You're still getting some chip damage in, especially if you don't think your opponent's going to have any great ways of killing it. It'll just continue to push a little bit of damage at a time. So, like, obviously it's going to need to be an ephemeral archetype. You're not going to just play it as 1 mana 1/1 elusive otherwise. But I can definitely see that archetype becoming a thing this expansion, and then this will be a pretty sick card. Then we have Field Musicians, 4 mana 1/4 tune. We're bringing a tune back. Haven't seen that in a little bit. Each round, once you've summoned 3 other allies, refill your spell mana and draw 1. So obviously the stat line's pretty rough, but since its effect is so powerful, the health is all that really matters. The health is what's going to keep it from dying. You're never attacking it with this. This is sitting in the back line while everything else does the stuff. And if you do get the Attune to give you a spell mana, then it is effectively a 3 mana card. And a 1/4 for 3 mana that has a very amazing per round effect is really good. In terms of how easy it is for this effect to go off, if you are going to be doing like the Sand Soldier archetype, we haven't seen Azir yet, but the support cards look amazing, and I'm going to be talking about that in a future video. But it seems like the summon 3 allies would be pretty easy in a lot of turns. You can also definitely pull that off in a Shadow Isles ephemeral deck. So it definitely screams ephemeral support, the same as the Shadow Apprentice does. And the power of this is so significant. If you're playing a spell like Haunted Relic, then you're getting like a full refund on it, and then drawing a card. Like, constant card draw engine I can't think of any card draw engines that are this easy to pull off. I mean, it's not super easy to pull off, but in the right deck, it is kind of really easy to pull off. And that's just totally nuts. I think if you can make the archetype work, this will carry it. Like, this will make it absolutely insane. This will be a must remove, and for 4 health, it is hard to just outright remove it. So, this card looks amazing. If we can make it happen, and I do think we'll be able to make it happen. Whether it's a Shadow Wilds variant or a Shurima variant, who knows? Maybe both. But I find it hard to believe that Azir won't be good. They even talked about it after the seasonal tournament last night. They were saying how Azir was super hard to balance. Well, they didn't specifically say Azir, but there's like one more champion left. So, and we know it's Azir. So I'm pretty sure they were talking about Azir. So yeah, definitely great. Love it. And we have our Overzone cards. Production Surge, 0 mana slow spell. To play, spend all of your mana, similar to Thermogenic Beam. Summon random turrets whose total cost equal the mana spent. So it's unclear exactly how this works. You'd imagine it would try to fill your board. You'd think like I don't think it would just fill your board with zeros if it could. That would be great if it did. If you just got a bunch of challenger turrets in addition to the whatever amount of regular turrets that you're gonna get, I'd be totally busted out of this world. So I think it probably doesn't give you 0 mana turrets unless you play it for 0 mana. You will get 1 0 mana turret. The rest of the time, I think it'll just give you like 1 1s, 2 1s, 3 1s, and so forth, like all the other turrets. And honestly, that's pretty sweet. In a deck that runs less units, and it is more spell-oriented, that gives you a lot of power. Certainly in a Heimer deck, you just play this, and it does work towards Heimer's level up, so you could straight up just play Production Surge and level Heimer off of all the turrets if you have enough mana being spent. Not to mention, you're getting a turret in your hand from playing this when you have Heimer on the board. So if you play it for 6, then you get 6 power worth of turrets, and then you play your 6 power turret, and you're done. He's leveled up. Good to go. So that's really, really cool. It's another interesting card to play in a Lux archetype, because you can play it on 6, and it goes wider. Like, you could play it the same way you would want to play Remembrance on 6, or, you know, they've got the 5/5 that sometimes, like, I've ended up building archetypes in Piltover with Lux. You run the, I don't recall what it's called, but it's the 5/5 for 6 spell mana. And this is kind of just better than that for sure, if you wanted to run this instead. So I like it a lot in any like Heimer or spell control decks. You get lots of blockers potentially off of this. You might whiff. You might play this for 7 and get a 7 power barrier unit, which might end up like totally screwing you over if you're fighting discard aggro or something. But I think in a lot of cases, this gives you a emergency out button where you just slam this, and then suddenly you can chump block a crap ton of stuff. Because you get like a varying range of different turret sizes that will be able to deal with things. So yeah, I think it'll be really, really cool. Way more variants than a Thermo Beam, which has 0 variants. But yeah, I definitely like it. I definitely like it. And we have Concurrent Timelines, 1 mana slow speed spell. For the rest of the game, the first time you play a follower each round, pick one of 3 followers with the same cost to transform it into. So this is from any region, you would imagine. And It's really, really cool because you can play cards for their play effects and their summon effects, and this would transform them after they hit the board. So you would, pick cards that generally things that load all of their mana power into their play effects and summon effects end up having weaker stats to, throw that into a state of balance. But in this case, you could have well-statted cards that come off of your play effects. It's only 1 mana. You play this on turn 1, and for the rest of the game, all of your random play effect cards that are trying to have a huge impact with their play effects will suddenly also have pretty decent bodies. Maybe even pretty decent keywords, depending on what choices you get. So in any sort of control deck, even a tempo deck that has, you could even turn a play effect deck full of really control-y-esque cards that you'd normally expect not to work in that way. It could become a tempo deck because of the fact that you're probably going to consistently get at least one good choice off of this in most cases. And that could give it a lot of power. But definitely the best thing about this is a combo that I heard about where you can play Karina or Ledros with this, and there are actually only 6 9-mana units in the game right now. Even after this expansion, as far as I'm aware, we're not getting any new ones. So you will have a extremely high percent chance for you to grab Dreadway off of this, and then instantly double the damage of your Ledros or your Karina. The Ledros actually turning from half of their Nexus health to the entirety of their Nexus health, instantly killing them. So in that case, it is an OTK just by playing Ledros, which is absolutely insane. I've played Dreadway and Ledros together before. It's a really cool idea, but having to play a 9-mana unit and then waiting a turn and then playing the other 9-mana unit, sometimes pretty hard to do. But this one can basically only be countered by them silencing or vengeancing the Dreadway. You won't always get it. It's like a 60% chance or whatnot. But if you don't hit it, you can still pretty much always get Bright Steel Formation, which is an amazing unit to have. Potentially just as good if you're in the right board state. And if it is Karina that you're playing, you can turn it into a Ledros, and when the Ledros dies, you get to play the Ledros and do this whole combo with the Ledros. So definitely a very strong combo. I think that will build an entire archetype. I mean, it's already an archetype. Karina control has been a thing in the past. It's come back a little bit here and there since its power spike when it kind of was ruling the meta back when Vi was released. But since then, it's been an okay archetype to play, but this would certainly put it over the edge and be absolutely nuts. So I think this will definitely be a very impactful card in the coming meta as we see it come into the game with this new expansion. And we have got some Noxus cards. Crimson Bloodletter, 1 mana, 1/2. The next time you summon another ally, deal 1 to it and grant me +1/+1. So it is a 2/3 after it triggers the effect. You can't do that immediately on turn 1, so you do have to get only 1 damage on the face if that's the case. But this is support for the self-damage archetype with Vlad and stuff like that. I think this actually helps the archetype a lot. I think this would be pretty sweet. It triggers a lot of your 2-drops and your 3-drops that come down pretty early on. It helps your Vlad level up, and it is giving you quite a stat line for it at the same time. So I don't know if this is enough to finally make it super viable. It's not terrible archetype right now. It's finally reaching a point where, you know, it's starting to reach the fringe. It's always been really under the curve, but it's definitely getting there. I don't think this is gonna put it over the edge, but it'll certainly help it and maybe give it a couple percentage points on its win rate. So it's cool. I think if you're gonna play that archetype, this 1000% going into the deck. But I doubt it's gonna make it into anything else, just because dealing 1 damage to your stuff probably isn't going to work out well for you in most other cases. Then we have Strength in Numbers, 8 mana slow spell, summon 2 Legion Marauders. I love this. Freaking, you have no idea how many people on Twitch are always asking about Legion Marauders and talking about Legion Marauders. It's like every new player's dream card. They all think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I must agree that when I started the game, I really wanted to make it work, but I've never really been able to pull it off. The whole shuffling things archetype in Piltover is way too costly, and that was the only real way to make sure that you have enough Legion Marauders for it to be worth. But this can finally make the deck a thing. It's still going to be a meme because this is still an 8 mana slow speed spell, but the fact that you get 2 and then you can swing in with both of them, and then they're both double buffing each other, means that if you've never played any of them before that turn, they're both going to become 5/4s, which is neat. And if you played any before that, then they'll be bigger than that, and that's pretty sweet. You can run it with Katarina like everyone always wants to. I'm definitely going to try the deck. Don't think it's going to be great, but it'll certainly be the best that Legion Marauders have ever been. Alright, then we have a Spider, 4 mana, 2/5, Shrieking Spinner, attack, grant Spider allies +1/+0. So this looks really, really good. If you attack with it, it is a 3/5, which is certainly nothing to scoff at in terms of a stat line. That's plenty good enough on its own. If you actually have spiders on the board, then it's doing really well with that. Certainly looks a lot better than the 5-drop, which, you know, nobody really plays the 5-drop anymore. But this could maybe help spiders start being a deck again. You see spiders here and there sometimes. Normally they get pretty blown out by just a little bit of removal here and there. They run out of gas pretty quick. But if they get you low enough, then they can just finish you off with some burn, and that's all they really need to do. And this is a very resilient spider that can help every one of your spider attacks be a lot stronger. So I really like it. I think it could definitely make spiders a lot stronger. And maybe we'll see more Elise around again. Not that Elise has been gone for very long. She was a big deal in Go Hard with TF for a long time, but maybe actual spider synergy for her for once. So I think it looks great. I think it could definitely help spiders a lot. Then we have some Shadow Isles cards. This is another spider. 3 mana, 3/2 Soul Spinner. When I'm summoned, grant me +1/+1 and fearsome if an ally died this round. So it's a 3 mana 3/2 without the trigger, which is terrible. With the trigger, which you'd imagine in a deck where you are playing it, you would hopefully be able to trigger it pretty consistently. Then it is just a Callista without the upside of the level up on Callista. And it's a spider, but I don't feel like you're running this in a spider deck necessarily. It might be hard to make that happen. like, you compare this to Arachnoid Horror, which is a 2-mana 3/2 fearsome, and that doesn't need a ally died this round trigger either. Like, you can't play this on an open attack because there's no way that you can kill something before, well, that's the, well, yeah, no. You can't, I guess you could kill the thing the turn before and then you play it and then you can open attack, but, like, you can't develop this before an attack is what I mean to say. You'd have to do some more things first. You have to sack something. Do a self-sacrifice effect first. Which is not, like, something that there is a lot of in spider decks. So I don't think it fits into spider decks, and I doubt it fits into slay, like, self-sacrifice decks either. It's not really a big deal. I don't think it's going to fit into fearsome decks. So if it doesn't fit into any of those decks, what the hell deck does it fit into? Which is probably nothing. So I don't think it's going to go into anything. I may be wrong. Maybe the 4/3 stat line fearsome is good enough, but I think we have enough decent fearsome units in fearsome decks and the slay decks and everything. They'll be fine without it. So I don't think this is going to see any play anywhere. And we have a 2-mana sea monster. 2-mana 1/2 Sea Scarab. It's got deep. And when another ally dies or last breath, toss 1. So this is interesting. I don't think it goes into your standard deep list just because you've got, you know, Thorny Toad, you've got all the other, like, lower drops and all that. The ally dying effect is kind of hard to pull off exactly in that deck. Like, you're going to get some of them dying here and there, but it's not really what the deck does. Outside of maybe once Maokai is there, you are getting a ephemeral every turn, but that's only 1 toss each time. And, like, it's not really accelerating your game plan very quickly. Not to mention, like, sure, once you get deep, it is a 4/5, but that's nothing crazy. What I do think, though, is this does enable non-Bilgewater deep decks, or rather, not deep decks, but non-Bilgewater Maokai decks. Because this combined with stuff like Haunted Relic and all kinds of easily killed off allies and ally sacrifice effects and stuff like that, you could probably use this to go really, really ham and delete your deck really fast so that you can get the Maokai trigger a lot earlier. Because I've seen a lot of people try to do Maokai decks without Bilgewater. I won't say I've seen a lot, but I see it now and then. I've never seen it be even a little bit viable. They never level their Maokai. By the time they are even getting a little bit close, they're long dead. So, I think this could help you get there. And that would be pretty interesting to see. I'm definitely going to try it. I don't know if it's the super viable thing, but I mean, it's decently killable, but it's not so bad that you're not having a huge investment in it. It's only a 2-mana card. So if they waste removal on it, you're going to feel pretty good about that too, even if you aren't getting to get enough tosses off of it. It's at least 1 toss, even if it just straight up dies instantly. So I think it's really cool. I really like it. Then the Demacia cards. Dragon Chow, 1 mana 0/3. When you play a dragon, it strikes me and you draw 1. This is such a cool card. I love it so much. So, it's a really cute little elephant that you just... It exists only to be eaten by a dragon. The intention is that dragons have fury outside of Shyvana's pre-level. Every dragon has fury, so they will get a +1/+1 buff off of this. and you draw 1. So it's kind of like a slow speed pre-development draw 1 +1/+1 to your dragon. And that sounds really, really good. The only downside being that it could die first, but if your opponent throws removal at a 1 mana unit, that's going to feel really good in terms of mana value. So it's not a huge loss in that way either. You can chump block this beforehand if you think it's going to make it through it, and still be able to hit it with your dragon. So you could save yourself 2 health against a more aggressive deck or whatnot. And it even helps with the Shyvana level up because you get a free strike for 1 mana that helps towards her level up condition with one of your dragons. So I think this, honestly, like, dragons have been suffering a little bit trying to be viable, but this could legitimately be enough to really push the archetype, and I like it for that. It's really, really awesome. It's such a creative design. So great. I'm definitely going to be trying to make that work. So then we have Towering Stonehorn, 6 mana, 7/7. I don't take damage from enemy spells or skills. So it's moderately overstated for the mana cost, just because it has no keywords. But it does have this take no damage effect. It can still get hard removed by stuff like Vengeance and such like that. But the main downside is just that because it has no keywords, it is going to get chump blocked a lot. You know, you might get more trades out of it than you would otherwise just because it is a 7/7. And you're not going to get wrecked by any like small chip damage to make it so that you get less trades. But it really is probably just going to trade a few times and then be done. Unless you can give it keywords, but then at that point I feel like it's a little bit of an overinvestment into the card. But nonetheless, like, I think it has some potential, but I think by this point in the game you really do need stuff that's pushing to end the game, generally speaking. And this one really isn't, just because it doesn't have Overwhelm, it doesn't have Fearsome, it doesn't have anything like that. So, like, certainly some kind of potential, but not too much, honestly. Like, the idea of it definitely sounds good, but I think you need more out of your 6 mana cards in this. And in Demacia you have like Cytherea and Genevieve, and those are like really big 6 mana cards that are kind of what you're always comparing everything to in terms of power level, and this definitely doesn't hit that power level, unfortunately. So I don't think it's going to be played for the time being. Maybe if you can, you know, stack it with some stuff and go all in on it, it'd be pretty nice, but even then, it's only going to live through like 2 trades, like a 3 attack unit and a 4 attack unit. And it still dies to Vengeance and stuff. And if Shadow Isles is as popular as I would imagine it might be, given how cool Kindred is and how I think a lot of people are going to want to try it, and how strong she's going to be, then this is just going to die to that stuff real easy. So, yeah, probably not going to see a lot of play, if any. And we have our Freljord cards as the last two. 2 mana, Ancestral Boon. It's a burst spell. Grant to the top ally in your deck +2/+2, and Light and Descend grant all allies in your deck +2/+2. So, granting your top ally +2/+2, unless you know what ally it is with a predict effect, probably not super relevant. You don't really care to spend 2 mana to like backload some stats for later. And like, if it's a super high value unit and you know it is because you predicted it onto the top, then maybe you care about that. But I don't even know what exactly you're doing with a Shurima Freljord deck anyways. Beyond that, the Enlightened effect is cool, but that's pretty late in the game. And generally speaking, I can't imagine exactly why an Enlightened deck that's ramping up to 10 mana is going to care about this sort of effect. It doesn't really line up with most of the strategies that are generally played in that situation. Normally you're playing large units that have enough going on with them all on their own. And for you to really get a lot out of this, you need to be drawing through your deck pretty fast and playing a lot of smaller stuff, you'd think. So it just doesn't really line up very much in my mind. Maybe it's some sort of karma deck and you like double buff your entire deck and then you're kind of just grinding out your opponent with all your like average size minions that have suddenly grown to be a lot bigger. And that way you end up being able to, you know, play a lot of stuff like that and then get a lot out of it later. But I don't think this is gonna make much sense for any decks. I think you could probably make a cool meme deck with it, but outside of that, I don't think it's gonna be played anywhere. And then the last card is Spoils of War, 3 mana burst spell, grant an ally +1/+2, and plunder grant +2/+4 instead. So obviously +1/+2, pretty crap. Probably not exactly worth it. We have other buffs that are a lot better. You know, the grant isn't going to matter a lot of the time, and you're like 1 mana off of Fury of the North now. At that point, the plunder effect is a lot better, but you are in Freljord, which means that it's not that easy to trigger plunder. So at that point, is the plunder effect only happening because you're in Bilgewater? And then is this like something that really makes sense in a Bilgewater deck really either? It's kind of hard to see exactly how you do it. Like, plunder isn't as easy as you'd think just to like get whenever you feel like it. So like if you can really consistently trigger the plunder, maybe it makes sense, because that is quite a nice buff. And at that point, but like you can't play it in combat unless you trigger the plunder in combat as well. If your opponent open attacks onto you and you're like, well, what am I gonna do to plunder? Then you're maybe like warning shotting, and like I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think it's very good. Like, there might be a way to make it work, but I think it's too much work. I think it's too much work to make it work, so I think neither of these Freljord cards are going to be played at all. And they're just going to be chilling in the back line for now. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate it. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below what you think of all these new cards that are getting added to all the different regions, and what your favorite card is out of all these. And if you'd like to see more of my content in the future, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.